Welcome back to another video, and in this video we're going to be continuing on with our SwiftUI tutorial series, and in this particular tutorial we are going to be taking a look at how we can use a text field and format its text as, say, a number, right? Oftentimes when you use a text field you're going to have numeric data entered in there, and maybe you want your state variable instead of a string to be a number because maybe you don't want to convert that string to a number and deal with all of that. Well, with a text field you can do that. There is an initializer, or there are a few initializers that we could use, but the one we're going to use is a very simple one, similar to how we used an initializer where the first parameter is a string for its placeholder text, and then a binding to some text, right? A binding for a string. This initializer can bind to a value, so some kind of numeric value. Let's go ahead and take a look at how we can do that. So inside of Xcode, we have an example here of a text field. That's how we've done it in the past. But let's start with our state variable. Instead of this being a string variable, we'll say value, and we'll make this a double. And we'll set it to 0 initially. Alright, that is the first step done. We have a numeric state, we have a numeric value for state instead of a string. And I have a number formatter here, but we're gonna use that here in a second. So keep watching, right? This will effectively format the text in our text field to have a minimum decimal places of 0, a maximum of 3, and it will format it in the number style of decimal. Pretty simple stuff. You should know this already. And then inside of our body here, we don't have any text field yet. So let's go ahead and create a text field. So we'll say text field. Here we're going to give it a string as its first parameter, but its second parameter is going to be value. If we take a look at our code completion, or at least you should be able to look at your code completion. If not, that's fine. Our value is going to be bound to value. But we're not done. We have to give it some kind of formatter so it knows how to format this. Now, the first way we can do this is give it a predefined formatter. That's defined behind the scenes by SwiftUI, or we can give it a custom one. Let's just give it a default one. So do a comma, format, and then we'll say dot decimal. Alright, so we had an error there, so we'll say text field value $value, and then we need to give it a format, so format, and we'll say dot decimal. we have an unterminated string literal again somewhere. Not sure where, though. Let's see. Ah. There we go. All right. So what we'll do, there we go. Now, we should be able to see all the different kinds of built-in formatters we can use. We can format this as a date time. We can do, there's various different date and time formats. We'll go with number. Like that. And that's kind of the example we're going to go with, just a numeric one. You can do a date as the format indicates, but we're just going to do a number example because that's going to be the most common. So if we run this and we have a successful build, I'm going to go back to the Mac here. Just to kind of make it easier on me here. All right. Let's run that. All right. Excuse me. It's loading. Let it kind of do its thing. All right. So you can see right now we have 0 in there, and that's exactly what we wanted. What if we try, and what if we remove that? What if we remove the value and we try to do some, let's say, just some random characters? Well, when we move focus away from our text field, and we hit enter or whatever to commit those changes, it doesn't accept those. It goes right back to 0. Right? So the difference between this kind of text field and the other kind of text field that we've been using with the text is that the state doesn't change in the text field until the changes are committed. And when those changes are committed, it first runs everything through that formatter and tries to bring it to the closest possible thing to an acceptable value. And then the state updates. So let's say 6.2J9L. If we hit enter, we get 6.4. So that's what that's what the number formatter determined is the closest possible thing. And that's great. But what if you want to use your own custom formatter? Well, that's pretty simple on its own. So I'm going to go back to our code editor here. All right. And instead of format, we can pass it a formatter. So formatter, and I'll give it formatter like that. Now, if we save it and run our code, we get a successful build. You can see we still get 0. Let's go ahead and do let's say 1, 2, 3 dot 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And you can see that we get a maximum of 3 decimal places, but the value it determined to use was 457 after the decimal, not not 456. Now, why is that? Well, that's because it automatically tries to round it to the nearest whatever the case is. So if it's like 3 decimals, it goes to the nearest thousandth. If it's hundredths, it goes to the nearest hundredth, stuff like that. All right. So that is how we can use a number formatter to format the text in a text field as numbers, and how we can accept a numeric state in a text field in SwiftUI. Thank you all so very much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.